Our next speaker will be Isabelle Ducharme. Ms. Ducharme has been working on social integration of people with disabilities for more than 20 years. She has presented at various conferences and facilitated multiple workshops on creating awareness for integrating people with disabilities. She has also delivered keynotes, has trained and consulted, specifically in the tourism field. She has a bachelor's degree in communication, a master's degree in business and tourism planning, and a course in communication and leadership from Dale Carnegie. Since 2011, she has been Keroul's chairperson. Ms. Ducharme?
2011 already.
That's what it says.
Thank you. How to seize the niche market of accessible tourism and who it benefits is the general title. Just a quick reminder of who Kéroul is. I know most of you have heard Kéroul so many times in the last few days, but just to put in perspective what we do, other than organizing this summit here. We're a nonprofit organization that was founded in 1979. Our mission is to make tourism and culture accessible for people with restricted physical ability. And in our key areas of action, we do evaluation and certification, training in hospitality, develop travel tools for inbound visitors like the Accessible Road that I hope you had a chance to look at, and maybe it helped you visit Montreal a little bit, because we include only venues that are fully accessible and that have their frontline staff trained. And finally, we conduct market studies, which is the main subject of the presentation now. So I have 3 learning objectives for this presentation. The first one is, what do market studies reveal about the needs of tourists with disabilities? Why is destinations for all the new talk of town? And how do partnerships with government and business influence the offer? Next. So what do market studies reveal about the needs of tourists with disabilities? Next. Thank you. So the purpose of these, we did combine the results from 2 studies, one that was done in 2011 and one was done in 2013. So it's to analyze the behaviors and attitudes of people with limited physical ability, shed light on the evolution of conditions in Quebec, and evaluate the actual and potential economic impacts of Kéroul's initiative for disabled people on tourism, and finally serve as a guide to help better meet the travel needs of people with limited physical ability, which is help us find out where we are and where we want to go and where we should go in accordance to people's needs. So the main observations that came out of the study were that people with limited physical ability mostly travel to visit family and friends. 64% were aged 55 and over. 28 had family incomes of over 40,000. 59% took at least one trip in the past 24 months, the average being nearly 6 trips. Average length of stay, and this is one thing that is interesting, especially in Quebec, but I think it's probably good for a bigger population, was 4 days, which is longer stay than most compared to the overall population. So one of our selling point definitely is that when people do travel and they have a disability, it usually takes longer to prepare. So when you want to go longer. You want to make sure that it's worth your while. So if we look a little bit at how they travel, what they do when they travel, we see that in their participation rates, they usually in their own area, and that usually reflects what they do when they travel as well. They are busy. People think that a lot of people think that people with disabilities just go from their hotel room, the airport hotel room, and then come back. But they do go to restaurants. They do want to go see theater. They go to see movies and go to museums. So that shows that they do visit different areas. How do they get the information prior to their trip? A lot of them from word of mouth, friends and family, but as mentioned before, a lot of them also use the web. When they do go to travel agents, it's less people, but I have to say that when they do, they usually go back to the same travel agent that gave the good information. If they're more insecure about the way they will find the information, usually they will go back to see the travel agent that they came to before. Another difference, I think, from the general population is when do they decide to do their travel. Most of them, it's many months before, or at least a few weeks before, and that is usually explained by the fact that we need more precise information. So we can't really do those last-minute deals going to a destination that we've never been before, because we have to verify when somebody says that they're accessible, make the phone calls and confirm and get the written information when possible. So and when we go with the general population, they usually just want the best deal, and they'll do the last minute getaway for the weekend. So that's something to think about when you want to market to the people with disabilities, that you don't want to announce your project last minute. You really have to plan it ahead of time. When we look at the general spending of a person with a disability on their average spending by trip, when we add everything from lodging to transportation and any other aspect that you might need when you're traveling, it's about close to $1,500 on each trip. So it's worth thinking about, because we try and say all the time how it's lucrative to cater to make sure that your venues are accessible. When we expand that and we want to convince governments that it is important to invest in becoming more accessible, we look at the revenues that it can mean for the government. Here in Quebec, it's about 174 million in tourist spending in Quebec. So for the governments, that means that for the provincial government, the province of Quebec, it's 20 million, and for the federal government, it's 8 million. So it's a lot of money coming back to the government just because they make it more accessible and people with disabilities can travel. So why is Destinations for All the new talk of town? Well, we already talked about it in the yesterday, but we have to keep in mind that the population is 1 billion in the world. It's only going to expand. Baby boomers, of course, will be part of that reason. Persons with disabilities want to be included. They do not want to be secluded. We do not want to have trips only for people with disabilities. We do not want to have entrances only for people with disabilities. We want to go in the venue like everybody else. We want to use the service like everybody else. We want to be part of a group with any and every kind of people in the group. We just don't want to be just people with disabilities. A traveler may use a variety of product and services related to tourism or not. So we have to keep in mind that when we travel, we're not only helping the economy for the tourism, but also for any other venue that would be used when we travel. And Destinations for All are good for both visitors and locals, because if you do transform your transportation into something that's accessible for tourists, you're also helping locals. If you're making sure that all your restaurants, when they're being built, they're accessible, it's also going to be good for the locals. So it's never just for the tourists, it's just helping everybody. So as an example, I put that if you are traveling to Montreal, to Morocco, to Singapore, or wherever you're going to go, you will need transportation, lodging, activities, and food, but you might also need to rent technical aids. You might want to shop for souvenirs or for anything you want to have a little snack. And you may have to find a drugstore, clinic, or hospital, even if we don't wish anybody to need a hospital on their travel. But it's something to keep in mind. It's good for the tourists, but it's also good for the locals when everything is more accessible. So some organizations tell us that they have difficulties convincing local authorities of the need for accessibility, but they have more collaboration when talking about the possibility of attracting more tourists because of it. And it's sort of almost like a quote from the people from Barbados when we met at the UN, saying how they've been working for so many years on trying to improve the accessibility in Barbados. And the government listened, really, when they mentioned that would bring more tourists if they were more accessible. So one of the solutions I'm suggesting is a product like the Accessible Road that I was talking about. You can go and look at the website. What we have done, it is a website where you have one-stop shopping. We selected regions that were better for their accessibilities. We included only products and services that were fully accessible and made sure that the frontline staff was trained. And also what you can do on the website, you can go and select what you need. If you need a roll-in shower in your hotel room, if you need you can select your type of disability and the needs that you have, and only the venues that can cater to that need will come out. So how do partnerships with government and business influence the offer would be the last topic. So by working together with the government and other partners, you definitely have more decision power, more universal gain. Non-profit organizations usually need financial support. We have the expertise, but we don't have the money to help us put together what we want to do. So government and businesses, on the other hand, don't have the knowledge and expertise that they need. So by working together, we can build a better accessibility. And of course, government and businesses will always look for more visitors and promotion options. So that usually is the key point, how to cater, how to make sure that they listen when you want to put new products on the market. And the lucrative part of having people with disabilities come to their venues come to the country is usually a good way to approach. So in conclusion, just a reminder that to my 3 points at the beginning of my presentation, market studies reveal that people with disabilities travel with others, return to accessible venues, and accessibility information definitely influences their activities. They need to know in advance where the accessibility is. Why the destinations for all? Because persons with disability or not, we all want to live the same experiences, and it is all inclusive. And how do partnership with government and businesses influence the offer? It's definitely a mutual financial gain and social responsibility response, and definitely a win situation for people with disabilities. And I have put just one last little picture at the end to show that people of all ages want to travel, because I took my grandfather to Las Vegas at age 92, and he did not need to use any motorized device at home, but he was afraid he couldn't follow us. So there is possibilities to travel even when you don't think it's possible, because we just rented a little scooter for him and he could come with us everywhere. Thank you.